They always came early, before the sun rose, before children finished sleeping, before the kettle could even boil. The sound was unmistakable heavy trucks, police boots crunching on gravel, and voices calling out names that had lived on those streets for generations. This was the sound of removal, a sound that tore through the heart of South Africa for decades. Under apartheid, this systematic destruction of communities was officially called resettlement, a clean, bureaucratic word for an act of profound violence. But everyone knew what it really was, erasure. It was the state deciding, with the stroke of a pen, that your home, your history, and your very existence at a place were now illegal. Imagine waking up one morning to discover that your entire neighborhood has been declared a white area, not because of crime, not because of danger, but simply because of the color of your skin. This was the reality in vibrant, thriving communities like Sophiatown in Johannesburg, District 6 in Cape Town, and Cato Manor in Durban, places where people had built homes, churches, schools, and generations of memories were suddenly just colored shapes on a government map waiting to be wiped clean. The law said you no longer belonged, and the state moved with brutal efficiency. Families were handed notices, often with no legal way to fight back. Some were given a few days to pack up their entire lives. Others, only a few hours. The moment the last person was out, the bulldozers would move in. Walls that had echoed with weddings, arguments, prayers, and lullabies collapsed into clouds of dust. Streets that held the footprints of ancestors were renamed, their history paved over. The land was scrubbed clean, as if its people had never been there at all. From the back of open-air trucks, children watched their homes disappear. They saw their bedrooms become rubble, their playgrounds turn to dirt. Parents, with a strength that seems impossible to comprehend, tried to stay calm. To hold their families together while everything was falling apart, they packed what they could. Carry a few pots, a mattress, precious family photos, but what they couldn't pack was so much more. The gardens they had tended, the neighbors who were like family, the graves of their ancestors, all of it was left behind, abandoned to the wrecking ball. And where were they taken? To places far away, on the desolate fringes of the city. These new settlements were called townships, but that name was a cruel joke. Many were nothing more than empty plots of land, exposed to the wind and rain. There were no paved roads, no electricity, no running water, and no schools nearby. Life became a daily struggle for survival. Men had to travel for hours just to get to their jobs in the cities they were no longer allowed to live in. Women, with incredible resilience, rebuilt households from scraps, creating homes out of nothing. And a new generation of children grew up knowing distance, not just the physical distance from the city, but the crushing distance from opportunity, from safety, from a fair chance at life. It's crucial to understand that these removals were not random acts of cruelty. They were deliberate. Calculated policy, laws like the Group Areas Act of 1950 and the Population Registration Act, serve as the legal backbone for this racial engineering. Apartheid turned racism into paperwork. Bureaucrats in cold government offices drew lines on maps, deciding who belonged where, police forces armed and ready. Enforced those decisions on the ground. The courts, meant to be pillars of justice, upheld these inhuman laws. The violence of apartheid wasn't always loud and explosive. It was a constant, grinding pressure. It was the fear in your heart every time a government truck rolled down your street. It was the humiliation of being treated like a stranger in the land of your birth. And for those who dared to resist, the consequences were severe. Protesters were arrested. Community leaders were beaten, many simply disappeared into prisons without trial, their families left to wonder and wait. Others were killed in clashes that the state would later deny or justify as necessary force. But there was one thing apartheid could not remove: memory. You can tear down a house, but you cannot destroy the feeling of home. People remembered. They carried the maps of their old neighborhoods in their minds. They could still smell the bakeries of District 6, hear the revolutionary jazz spilling from the clubs of Sophiatown, and feel the joy of children playing freely in streets that no longer existed. These memories, shared in quiet conversations and passed down to the next generation, became powerful acts of resistance. They were a testament to a truth the regime tried so desperately to bury when apartheid finally fell in the early 1990s. It was a moment of immense hope. Survivors returned to the sites of their old homes only to find empty spaces, unfamiliar street names, and the ghosts of what once was. The process of justice and rebuilding has been slow, uneven, and for many, deeply unsatisfying. Some communities were rebuilt, but many were not. The land claims process is a complex and painful journey that continues to this day. However, a monumental shift occurred. The truth was finally spoken aloud on a national and global stage. The forced removals were officially recognized not as a resettlement or a policy mistake, but as what they always were, crimes against humanity. They were acts designed to break families, control movement, and steal valuable land by erasing black presence from it. Today, South Africa still lives with the scars of that violence. The geography of apartheid is still visible. The townships, once created as dumping grounds, remain far from city centers, disconnected from economic hubs, inequality, poverty. And opportunities still largely follow the racial lines drawn by those apartheid planners decades ago. The past isn't just in the past, it shapes the present, and yet, in the face of this legacy, the people remain. They rebuild, they remember, they tell their children and their grandchildren where they truly come from. They fight for their stories to be heard. Because even when homes are demolished and communities are scattered, the sense of belonging survives. It lives in memory, in story, and in spirit and history. Once it is spoken and acknowledged, cannot be removed again. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please share it so that these memories are never forgotten. Subscribe for more stories that explore our shared history.